What's up, LA Kings fans? The Bat Fry, Kenny Fry here, letting you know what's coming up on this episode of the Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition. It's been a while for me since I've been on here, so it's going to be a lot of reviewing as to what happened over the summer. So I'm going to go over who left the Kings through free agency, who the Kings signed through free agency, and also a couple trades the Kings made. And I will also go over possible line combinations and whatever else pops up, whatever pops into my head, and we'll shoot off from there. So stay tuned for the Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition. I will return in about 45 seconds. What's up, LA Kings fans, and welcome to the Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition. It's Tuesday, Blues Day, and here we are. So it's like I said before in the opening, it's been a while since I've been on. It's been, I think the last time I might have been on might have been probably June. I think it might have been early June. I don't remember if I specifically came on and covered the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. So it was somewhere around there. It was the last episode I had. I don't remember if I came on and did the PLD trade or not. So we'll talk about that again for a little bit. But yeah, it's been a hot minute. I took pretty much most of the summer off from the LA Kings Silver and Black Lair. Just living life, doing things. So. But I'm back, and hopefully I'll be doing the Kings weekly here to lead up to the season, and start getting some games. I'm ready for the hockey season. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for some hockey. I love some hockey, especially LA Kings hockey. Some new rosters, some moves, and curious to see how they work out for the Kings and for Rob Blake, especially the Kings GM appears to be. Well, last season we thought he was on a super hot seat. The Kings make the playoffs again, get their asses kicked by the Oilers again. I thought that was it for Blake. I really did. I thought Rob Blake was done after that, but they kept him. Surprisingly, they kept Rob Blake, and here we are. That's all I can say about that. We're in basically the same mode we thought we were in last season. This is Rob Blake's last chance as the GM of the Kings. And I do think this is it, though. It's one of those things. So last season, it was the Kings had to get out of the first round for Rob Blake to have his job be secure. And, I don't know if I really believe that or not. But that was the thing going around in the LA Kings fan circles, whether it's on social media, LA Kings X. I've also heard on a few of the podcasts as well that the belief was that in order for Rob Blake to keep his job, the Kings would have to win and make the playoffs and get out of the first round. And the Kings started off last season very, very good, very promising. Looked like one of the best teams in the league. Then January happened, and it was awful. January was absolutely awful. It ends up getting Todd McClellan fired, and after that, the new coach, and there's an interim, for the most part for last season, did a good job. The Kings did make the playoffs, kind of turned it around a little bit, played a lot with the lineups, which I thought was fantastic. It's something that Todd wouldn't do. He would not mess with the lineups. It was pretty much set in stone, and that was it. And Uh, that's not what after he got fired. That's the new coach. A lot of different combinations. Try this guy here, try this guy here, and some of it worked, some of it didn't work. And Kings did make the playoffs, but they didn't get out of the first round. And that's one of the things. As soon as they get out of the first, especially the way the Kings lost in the first round, I got our pecker smacked by the Oilers again. And I thought for sure we were not going to see Rob Blake. And I thought for sure Luke Robitaille was going to have to hire a new GM, or maybe even Luke Robitaille, the team's president. I wouldn't have been shocked if he lost his job as well. But here we are. Luke Robitaille keeps his job. Rob Blake keeps his job. They have to figure out what they're going to do with the roster, what they're going to do with the coaches, with the coaching staff, and go from there. So this offseason was kind of interesting. How do they upgrade? How do the Kings upgrade with a limited salary cap? And how do they do that? How do they go about it? What does their coaching search look like? How far do they deviate? Like I said about the interim tag put on Jim Hiller. Does he keep a job? Because he really did have a solid second half. Now, granted, if you go back and look at it, the second half of the Kings season last year was against lesser opponents for the most part, and the Kings won the games they had to win. Going down the stretch, especially, there were some times where they were actually out of the wild card spot, and we're in the top three, but then falling back into the wild card, and there was a time where they fell out of the wild card. It wasn't long, but they got hot enough where they crept back into the wild card and really secured a spot there. And to be 100% honest with you, I did not think that the Kings would have played as poorly as they did against the Oilers in the playoffs. I didn't think the Kings were going to beat the Oilers in the playoffs, but I thought they would have had a better showing. I wouldn't have been surprised if it had won 6 or 7, but only won 5 games. And I'll tell you what, it didn't feel like the Kings were in any of those games. Even the game that they won, I don't remember the exact score. Well, to be honest with you, I think the Kings dominated that game. If I remember correctly, it was like I don't remember. I don't remember if it was like a 4-0 game, 4-1, 5-1, or something like that. It doesn't really matter. But the Kings lost in 5 games, and it was utter dominance by the Oilers, who did move on eventually to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they lost to the Florida Panthers, which kind of surprised me. I thought the Panthers would have, or the Oilers would have taken care of the Panthers, but the Oilers kind of just petered out. The Panthers had a great game plan going into the Stanley Cup against the Oilers, and they got the job done. It did go 7 games, but the Oilers, really shut down the star power of, or the Panthers did shut down the star power of the Oilers. So you kind of hope that some of these Western Conference teams were watching the blueprint that the Panthers laid out to slow down your Connor McDavid, the douchebag Draisaitl, and what have you from there. Zach, I can't think of his name right now. To slow down those few stars that the Oilers have, which carry that team. I mean, Connor McDavid, best player in hockey. Douchebag Draisaitl's right up there as well. You have to figure it out, and the way the Florida Panthers did it was through defense. I felt like. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of the breakdowns from the experts, that's what they pretty much covered, was defensively how the Florida Panthers were able to slow down those mega stars that the Oilers had, and it wasn't, they weren't going to outscore the Oilers. They weren't going to go out there and offensively, trade goals with the Oilers. They were going to have to do it through defense, and that's how the Panthers did it. So hopefully, some of these Western Conference teams saw that and said, hey, we're not going to be able to score with the Oilers more than likely, but we can, rough them up a little bit. We can play good, strong, fundamental defense, make it frustrating for them, because McDavid was frustrated, Draisaitl very frustrated, throughout the finals there, And I know there was a couple times where McDavid did kind of break through a little bit, but for the most part, he was way off in the finals. I got a couple comments here before we lead into the moves. Eileen, hello, Eileen. How are you on Tuesday, Blues Day? We got some morning bat fry. You'll have some more morning bat fry tomorrow morning when I'm talking the Mets, and closing in here. The last we're in the last 50 or so games, 50, 60 games, whatever it is. I think it's 50. I think we're around 50 games left in the season. Get down to the nitty gritty here, Eileen. We'll talk a little bit about your Yankees tomorrow, see how they're doing. And after they, spanked the Phillies around, that was somewhat surprising. Surprising, but not surprising. The Phillies have been playing kind of not all that great lately. But the Yankees to get the sweep over the Phillies, that was surprising. And there's Cowboy Dave, the showstopper himself, checking in. Thank you, Dave. He says, "Hey, big man, what does Hiller have to do to turn his team around?" It's a great question. I don't know exactly what they're going to change, David. That's something I was getting ready to talk about. With Jim Hiller being kept, having that interim tag removed from his name, and I think he deserved it. I really do think he deserved it. This is, I believe, his first real head coaching job. I think he deserved it. The team played well in the second half. He wasn't afraid to mix things up. And I think that's part of the reason why he got that job was the fact that he wasn't afraid to change lines up. He wasn't afraid to take somebody like Blake Lizotte, who's always going to be a fourth liner, it seems like, and then move him up to the third line. One, because his play earned it. He's not going to go out there and outscore anybody, but he's scrappy. He's balls to the wall all the time, and he'll out-hustle anybody on the ice. And the Kings needed some of that. So he was elevated. You've seen Quentin Byfield, drop down to the second, third line. Move him in from out from the winger into center, stuff like that. Moving Pierre-Luc Dubois down to the fourth line because he was playing like hot garbage, like he did all season. I will talk a little bit more about him. So he has. So the big thing for Hiller is he has to figure out how to get consistent offense. I think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I am in no way an expert in this. I am very much a hockey novice. I used to watch a ton of. If you're new to the show, I've mentioned this before, but if you're new to the show, I used to watch a ton of hockey growing up. I loved hockey. When I was growing up, I'm talking 90s. So it's a long time ago. But my love for the LA Kings all started with 99, Wayne Gretzky. When he was traded to the Kings, that was actually I guess the late 80s, 88, something like that. But I didn't start watching until probably 92, 93, somewhere around there. But Wayne Gretzky, he was the main catalyst for me, following the Kings, loving the Kings. But he was one of my favorite players, but not my overall favorite player. My overall favorite player back then was Kelly Hrudey. Then you probably go Kelly Hrudey, Wayne Gretzky, I like Luc Robitaille, Marty McSorley, Rob Blake, all those guys. Jari Kurri. I don't know if I mentioned him or not. Paul Coffey was there for a little while. I liked Paul Coffey. But we used, me and my friends used to play a lot of street hockey. I enjoyed watching some of the Red Wings seasons, watching them play. But I was still always a Kings fan. But the Red Wings were a lot of fun when they had like Chris Draper, Sergei Fedorov, Steve Yzerman. When they were rolling hot and hard, Chris Osgood, Mike Vernon. Guys like that. They were rolling. They had the Russian line, I guess it was. I think that's what they called it. I can't remember all their names. Larionov, something Ov, whatever Ov, Jack Off. I don't know what it was. If I seen their names now, I'd remember them. But those were a lot of fun. That's a fun team to watch, and also the rivalry between the Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings. That was a lot of fun. Watching the Rangers win a Stanley Cup back in the mid '90s, Mark Messier and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. Mike Richter, I always liked Mike Richter. I was a big fan of goalies. If you didn't notice, That's what I used to play when we played street hockey. I played goalie because I was the fat kid and I took up a lot of the net. But anyway, fast forwarding, I kind of stopped watching hockey a little bit after. I can remember what year the lockout was. I can't remember. I don't remember if they canceled the season or what it was. Or the season started late. But I just kind of lost interest in hockey. It wasn't very accessible on TV. Didn't see a whole lot of it. It's well before cell phones and streaming and stuff like that. So I just fell out of love with hockey and I just stopped watching it. Which is unfortunate because the Kings won 2 Stanley Cups, and I did watch some of those Stanley Cup finals, but I can't really celebrate those Cup wins with the Kings as a Kings fan because I wasn't really a Kings fan then. I was a Kings fan, but I wasn't following the team enough to feel like, be one of those people. Like, we won the Stanley Cup. I couldn't do it. So it was a bit of a bummer there. But fast forward now to about 2 years ago when I started doing the podcasting thing. I started really getting into listening to podcasts as well. And I'm like, I'm going to give hockey another chance. And I started watching hockey. I started streaming hockey on my phone and watching it through there. And, I just absolutely fell in love with this team again. So I'm learning a lot more about hockey again. I don't know all the players like I used to know, but I'll get there. I'm not an expert. But anyway, I feel like, getting back to the original point here, what does Hiller have to do to turn his team around? I just feel like he has to find creative ways to get offense, to create offense, and to get offense from his main players. And I'm not looking at guys like Andrei Kopitar. I'm not really thinking him. You're going to get offensive output from him, but he's a player. He's nearing the end of his career here. He has a couple years left, but you're not looking to get 50 goals from this guy and 60. So you're not looking for a 100-point season out of this guy. I don't know if there's anybody on this team that you're looking for a 100-point season from, but I believe deep down that there are at least 2 or 3 guys on this team where you can get a 100-point season from. Now, not all at the same time, I don't think. That's Edmonton Oilers right now. That's what you look at there. It's Zach Hyman and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl throwing up 100 points or whatever. That's not what the Kings have. But I think individually, these guys are all capable of the season. I look at Quentin Byfield. Is he going to be able to step up, take that next step in his what is this? His third season up on the main roster here. Just got re-signed. I'll talk about that in a little bit here again. Can he take that next step and become closer to being elite? I felt like he took that step last season. He kind of petered off at the end. The last 2 months of the season, offensively, his output wasn't there, but the hustle was there. The grit was there. The heart was still there. Just offensively, either he wasn't getting opportunity or was just missing the opportunities did have. So I think Quentin Byfield is somebody that, potentially sometime in his career can put up 100 points. I think he can be a goal scorer, and obviously he can, throw, pass the puck around and get some assists as well. But the guys I'm looking at that to really step up this season, to score some points for the Kings and maybe offensively carry this team, 2 guys in particular, and they are Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala. I think both those guys are absolutely capable in the same season to get close to 100 points, if not at 100 points. Goal scoring, they both have it. They're both dynamic with the puck, super fast, great hands, great passing, great skating. And I feel like that both those guys, if the Kings are going to be successful this season, I feel like both of those guys are going to have to be dominant goal scorers. And with that in mind, I feel like they're going to have to take more shots than they're used to taking. I don't think that's a problem for Fiala. I think Fiala does take a decent amount of shots. He does find himself in trouble sometimes with some goofy penalties or some just like off the wall plays, like a pass across ice in the neutral zone. It's kind of It's like, what are we doing here, dude? But I could see Fiala taking a ton of shots, but Kempe, uh, not that he's timid at throwing the puck at the net. It's just he's looking for other plays as well. He's looking to pass the puck to somebody open instead of just throwing that puck at the net and seeing what could happen, trusting himself. So I feel like if we can get Adrian Kempe to take more shots at the net, it's going to lead to more goals. Obviously, more shots, more goals. And I feel like that's where the Kings need to go. That's what they need to be pushing this season. They said, coming out, we were wondering, because Kempe and Fiala are two guys that spoke out this past off season, saying they'd like to see a little bit more creativity in the offense. And so if I'm Jim Hiller, I say to these guys, hey, we have a whole off season now. Hiller coming off of being with that interim tag, that means he became the coach during the season. You can't really change anything scheme wise. But now you have a whole off season to implement some sort of scheme change offensively and defensively if you wanted to, and to really push the envelope and to get more goals. Because there were times where that was the Kings' biggest bugaboo for most of the season, to be honest with you, where they just couldn't score goals. Defense would be playing great. Goaltending would be playing great. It just couldn't put the goals on the board. So if I'm Jim Hiller, I say, this is what you guys want. All right. I will look into it. We'll see what we can do. But you guys have to make it happen. You guys got to do it. You guys got to be the playmakers that I know you can be. And I think most of Kings Nation believes that Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala can be those guys to take the Kings offensively to another level. So that's what I think Hiller needs to do. Defensively, they said they're not going to change anything. They're going to stick with the 1-3-1. So we'll see what happens there if that's true or not. It's a clog them up style of defense. It really clogs the middle of the ice up to prevent the other team from entering your zone cleanly. But it slows the game down. It really does slow the game down. I'm thinking that Kempe and Fiala want something a little bit more fast paced. So I don't know if there's something where you could transition in and out of the 1-3-1 again. I'm not really an expert on this stuff. It's just something that I think about. Or can they transition in and out of it? Is there something where they can go smoothly from a 1-3-1 to a different type of look, and then back to the 1-3-1 in different parts of the game? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that would work or not. I'm not really positive on it, but that's just thoughts I had. The offensively, need to pick it up, though. All right, so moving forward with some of the topics that I wanted to talk about today, go over some stuff that happened in this offseason, free agency and stuff like that. So who left the LA Kings? Who is no longer an LA King? Some names that weren't too surprising, but still hurt a lot, and some names that not so much. So who left? In free agency wise, the Kings have lost Cam Talbot, which I don't think is a big deal. He left as a free agent to Detroit. He had a great season. He was their only All-Star last year. Struggled January, and it's one of the reasons why Todd McClellan did get fired was the poor goaltending from mainly Talbot, and he stuck with Talbot. That was part of the thing there. It's like Talbot's struggling, and he just kept going to Talbot, and Talbot couldn't figure it out, and that's the one thing Hiller didn't do. He kept a decent rotation between Talbot and David Rittich up until near the end of the season when it was kind of down to the nitty gritty, and he stuck with Talbot, and Talbot was playing great by then. But we entered in the second half of the season. I think it was after the All-Star break with David Rittich as your starting goalie. Now that wasn't long. That was just kind of to give Talbot like a reset, deep breath, settle in, and then Cam Talbot settled back into the number one goalie, and he played like it. He had a pretty good second half after the All-Star break, as well as did David Rittich. But the Kings did not re-sign Talbot. They did re-sign David Rittich, and I'll go over who they re-signed and stuff like that. So Talbot's gone. Blake Lizotte, unfortunately, this one stings a little bit because of the stuff I mentioned earlier about the heart and hustle and all that good stuff, the grittiness. He's like a gnat. You need guys like that on your team. But unfortunately, he did not get re-signed by the Kings. He was not offered a contract. And now he is in Pittsburgh with the Penguins on a 2-year, $3.7 million deal. The Penguins got a good player. He plays much bigger than his frame is, so because he's a smaller guy. Hopefully he does well there. I'm rooting for Blake Lizotte. I like Blake Lizotte. Victor Arvidsson. Now this one pisses me off for a couple different reasons. Victor Arvidsson. I like Arvy. Good player. A little bit injury prone. We seen last season we didn't get him for a full season, but the potential's there. You know, he can be a game breaker with his offensive output, whether it's goal scoring or setting other people up for goals. Does a great job on the power play as well, and we lose him. So that hurts. That bugs me. But then we lose him to Edmonton, and that pisses me off. To let him go to Edmonton, that really irritates the hell out of me. And I am not rooting for Victor Arvidsson. So nothing against Victor Arvidsson, but he's with the Oilers, so on him. Matt Roy, this one stings. One of our best defensemen. He left, and it wasn't surprising. You know, I don't think the Kings would have had the money to re-sign Arvidsson, or not Arvidsson, Matt Roy, and it's good for him to get a big contract, and hopefully he does well. He signed with Washington, the Capitals, on a 6-year, $34.5 million deal. So good for Matt Roy for cashing it in, making some decent coin there. He had a great season. He had a decent run with the Kings. Great season this year. So he absolutely deserved it. A couple trades. The Kings traded away Carl Grundstrom, which wasn't too surprising. They were probably going to lose him to free as a restricted free. I think he was a restricted free agent. They probably would have lost him there anyway. But he was traded to the Sharks for defenseman Kyle Burrows. And then the biggest trade of the offseason, I think in the whole league, to be honest with you, the Kings were able to trade Pierre-Luc Dubois, which was surprising to begin with. But they were able to trade him away without having to retain any of his salary. So they was kind of straight up 1-for-1 trade here, and Kings didn't have to pay any of his salary, which was unbelievable. So they're able to trade Pierre-Luc Dubois away to the Washington Capitals for a goalie, Darcy Kemper, a Stanley Cup winning goalie. And I do remember talking about this now on a past episodes. But I'm still going to cover it again. Kemper did win a Stanley Cup as a starting goalie with the Colorado Avalanche, but that was a dynamic, offensively dynamic Colorado Avalanche team, top to bottom. That team was awesome. What was it, 2022, 2021, somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact year, but absolute terrific team. So it's pretty much most of the goalies in the league probably would have won a Stanley Cup with that Avalanche team. But you can't take anything away from Kemper. He had a really good season. He had a couple really good seasons with the Avalanche, and I think he had a 1 or 2 decent seasons with the Caps. I don't remember exactly. I did have all the stats and stuff like that when the trade first happened. I don't remember offhand. But I do know this past season he wasn't all that great for the Capitals. I lost his starting job, so he was in a backup role. But the Kings are kind of hoping that with their stout defense, they can kind of revitalize Darcy Kemper, and kind of like the way they did with Cam Talbot. Cam Talbot almost came in with the same type of situation where he was I don't want to say top goalie in the league years ago, but he was one of the better goalies in the league, and then kind of fell on hard times the last couple seasons. He comes to the Kings, a much better defense than what he was used to. And I think Talbot, was he with Ottawa? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But a much better defensive team, kind of revitalized Cam Talbot, and really helped him out, to be honest with you. He and David Rittich. That 1-3-1 does help the goalies. It's very goalie friendly. So uh, I think the Kings are kind of banking on that a little bit with Darcy Kemper. He kind of slots himself in as of right now as your number one goalie wise. And like I mentioned earlier, the Kings did re-sign David Rittich to a 1-year deal, so he kind of slides into your number two. And again, it's the same as last season. The goalie situation it's kind of tenuous. You're hoping for the best. You're not going to be shocked if it goes well, but you're not going to be shocked if it doesn't go well either. So we'll see what happens. So who stayed? Who stayed for the Kings? Who were the Kings able to re-sign? Like I mentioned, David Rittich. He re-signed on a 1-year deal. Akil Thomas, which is great to see that he's able to sign a 2-year, $1.55 million deal with the Kings. Left winger Andre Lee, 1-year deal. He'll probably be down in Ontario still. He had a great end of the season last year for Ontario, and I listened to the Ontario Reigns playoff run, and I heard his name a lot. He had some really good games on the stat sheet, and also besides the stat sheet, he did a lot of things. He made a lot of things happen. So Andre Lee, I thought he had a good season last year with the Reign, and also into the playoffs. Had a pretty good Calder Cup playoff run. The Kings also re-signed Samuel Fagimo, 1-year deal. Another young guy. We're going to see if he's going to make the main roster, just like Akil Thomas. Are these guys going to make the main roster or not? The opportunity's there. Alex Turcotte, the Kings re-signed him, 3-year deal, $2.325 million. I do think we do see Turcotte on the main roster. I feel like out of Fagimo, and Akil Thomas, I feel like Turcotte's probably the number one right now. If I had to rank them as to who I think ends up on the main roster, I think it would go Turcotte, Akil Thomas, then Samuel Fagimo. But I don't. What the hell do I know? Again, I don't know. That's just a feeling that I have. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. Trevor Lewis. I thought Trevor Lewis would retire, and I didn't think the Kings would re-sign him if he didn't retire. But here we are. The Kings re-signed Trevor Lewis, 1 year, $800,000. Veteran leadership. He had solid play. You can't really deny that. He finished in the plus and the plus minus. Nothing really crazy stat wise. But I think the big thing was at the end of the season, he played very good hockey at the end of the season. You can't deny that. He played very good hockey defensively. Very defensive. I felt a very defensive-minded offenseman, center. I felt like he did a good job at the end of the season. I don't think he should have got re-signed. I feel like he should have retired or signed somewhere else. But for me, it looks, he's taking a spot from a younger guy, and I'd rather see a younger guy up there than Trevor Lewis. But if it helps us win, it helps us win. They also re-signed goalie Phoenix Copley. If you remember, Phoenix Copley came in 2023, kind of saved the Kings' butts at goalie, as Quickie was struggling. What the hell's I can't think of his name now. Cal Peterson. He was struggling. Traded Cal Peterson away to Philly. Traded Jonathan Quick away to Columbus, who then traded him to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Then he wins the Stanley Cup with them. And then he gets traded, or I think it was I don't know. He signed as a free agent with the New York Rangers, and had a really good season there. So good for Quickie. But Phoenix Copley did a hell of a job for us in 2023, 22-23, I guess it would be. Or was it? No, it was 23-24, 22-23. That's what it was. Really, kept our ass out of the fire. Until the Kings, traded Quickie away to Columbus, and they got Jonas Korpisalo, and then they had a nice goalie tandem there. They weren't, neither one of those guys were shutdown goalies, but they did a terrific job of, keeping games close, keeping scores low, and that Korpisalo we let go heading into the last season. And Copley as our number one. And then I believe it was we had Cam Talbot as our one, and then Copley as our two, and Rittich was, I think, in Ontario. I could be wrong about that. Copley gets hurt, blows his knee apart, and I think it was in practice. And so that gets David Rittich called up, and Rittich had a terrific season last year as a backup. So as a number two goalie, he did play very, very well. So Phoenix Copley gets re-signed, so he'll start down in Ontario, and we'll see how that knee is, and then we'll see how Rittich is playing, and we'll see how Kemper's playing, and we'll see what goes on with the goalie situation with the Kings, because we also have Eric Portillo. I'm not sure he was a restricted free agent. I'm not sure the Kings did tender him a contract. But I don't know if he signed it or not. I'm not sure. I couldn't find anything online about that. I don't remember hearing anything about if Portillo signed or not. I think he did, but I couldn't find anything on it. So there are some goalie options, but none of them you're too crazy about. I am kind of somewhat excited. I want to see what Portillo can do. But I think if we're starting Portillo at goalie, I think that means that we're not having a good season. The Kings were also able to re-sign Quinton Byfield. That was our main goal this offseason, was to re-sign Quinton Byfield long-term. And this is, not quite long-term, but close enough to where it can bridge to his next contract. He is very young. And the Kings, hopefully have the salary cap situation a little bit more figured out by the time this contract is finished up. They re-signed Quinton Byfield to 5 years, $31.25 million. I have every belief that it's going to be worth every penny. I think Quinton Byfield will take that next step and lead the Kings past the first round of the playoffs, baby. And another big re-sign was Jordan Spence, rookie last year. Did a great job defensively, I thought. I think we need to get a little bit more offensive output from Jordan Spence. Coming into this season, I feel like I'm not 100% sure, but from things I've heard and read through beat writers and also Kings podcasts like the Locked On Kings and stuff, that Jordan Spence in Ontario was a little bit more offensive minded than he showed last season. So if we can get a little bit more offensive output out of him, I think that'd be fantastic. But besides that, I thought he had a really good rookie season, very solid, did a good job. And all's good in the world there. So I like who the Kings re-signed. Again, who we did lose. I was kind of bummed to see Matt Roy go, bummed to see RV go, Victor Arvidsson, and Blake Lizotte as well. But I understand the Lizotte one. I understand the Roy one. The Roy one was, basically because the Kings just didn't have enough cash. The Arvidsson one, I think, has a lot to do with his injury history. So it is what it is. All right. So moving on from that, what could the possible line combinations look like for the LA Kings coming into the season? I'm sorry. Before we get there, who did the Kings sign in free agency? That's who we lost in free agency and who we re-signed during the free agency period. But who did the Kings pick up in free agency? The biggest name that the Kings picked up was Warren Foegele from the Edmonton Oilers. A nice piece. Nothing that really stands out as a game changer or anything like that. I think he'll play well with the Kings. Skates well, good hands, decent speed, very good passer. And he's never really stood out as an Oiler because of the stars that they do have. But I do know whenever I'd watch the Kings play against the Oilers, I would constantly see Fogel's name. So we'll see what happens there. I think he's going to do well. I think the feeling that I get from it, I feel like we'll get more out of him than we would have if Victor Arvidsson would have stayed. I just feel like deep down, I feel like we'll get more out of him. And I don't know if that's because of Arvidsson's injury history or what, but that's just the feeling that I get. They did trade for Tanner Jeannot from the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was for a 2024 4th-round pick and a 2025 2nd-round pick. Not sure where Tanner Jeannot is going to fit in. Is he going to be a fourth line guy, third line guy? I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I don't know a whole lot about Tanner Jeannot. Then Joel Edmondson. This is the one that a lot of people got their panties in a bunch about. Kings signed Joel Edmondson, free agent. I can't remember offhand exactly where he's coming from. I feel like he's coming from Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay or Florida. I feel like it's Tampa Bay, but I could be wrong about that. It's not so much the signing of Joel Edmondson that kind of irked a lot of Kings fans, Kings faithful, and also their podcasters and maybe beat writers as well. I guess I don't know if you call them beat writers or not. Was not so much the signing of Joel Edmondson, but for the contract that they signed Joel Edmondson to. The money they gave him. I think it was I think it was 4 years. I feel like it was 4 years, and I want to say it was $8 million per year, but I could be wrong about that. I could be off about that. But the contract doesn't fit the style of player, what the production that Edmondson has put out, and the Kings with the tight salary cap that they have, they could have used that money somewhere else and re-signing somebody else. Maybe re-sign a Victor Arvidsson, or even look at some other free agents there that they could have gotten for cheaper and saved a little bit of cash there towards the salary cap. But Joel Edmondson's a big guy, physical guy, and that's one of the things that Jim Hiller did say about this next season coming up in the off season, that the Kings, the players better get ready to be uncomfortable. They're going to ramp up the physicality, and that's what Joel Edmondson is. He takes a lot of penalty minutes. He's a big physical guy, and when he's on ice, you notice. If you're the opposing player, he's on the ice, your head is up. You're on a swivel. Your head's on a swivel, and you're going to get hit, and he's going to take penalties, and that's what it is. So, it's not your classic enforcer kind of guy, but that's probably as close as you're going to get to it anyway. But we'll see what happens. I'm not going to poo-poo a deal or whatever, because it's too much money. He could come out and he could ball out and have a terrific season, an all-star season, and people have to eat those words. I'll have faith in it and see if they put the play out on the ice, right? So looking at the different line combinations, we didn't do a whole lot in free agency, but anyway, looking at some different line combinations. So this is what I found online. First off, and it's nothing too crazy, where you have Quentin Byfield on your first line as left winger, Kopi at center, and Kempe at right wing. Second line, you have Moore left winger, Philly D, Philip Denault at center, and Kevin Fiala at right wing. Then third, you have Laferriere at left wing, Alex Turcotte at center, Warren Fogle at right wing. Fourth line, you have Tanner Jeannot left wing, Trevor Lewis center, Arthur Kaliev, which I'm not sure he'll be on the team. I know that the Kings he wants to be traded. He doesn't want to be with the Kings anymore. The Kings did tender him a contract. But we'll see if they acquiesce and trade him away, or what's going to happen with that situation. Kaliev does have a ton of potential to score goals. That's why it's going to sting to see him go. If he does go, I think he's going to go, but there's also a small part of me that thinks, what, maybe they keep him around and they give him another shot, to go out there and actually show us what he can do on the ice. So we'll see what happens. But they have Kaliev on the fourth line at right wing. The defensive pairings, they have Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty, Vladislav Gavrikov, and Brant Clark, which is going to be interesting. Joel Edmondson and Jordan Spence as your third defensive pairing. So where I could see a couple different changes, I could see Quentin Byfield, which a lot of people have been calling for. I could see Quentin Byfield centering one of these lines. So I could see Quentin Byfield possibly centering the third line. Move him down. What do you do with Turcotte? You move him down to center of the fourth line, perhaps. Up there at left winger. I think that Fogel. I don't see Fogel on the third line. I could see Fogel up some. So do you move Fogel up to the top line? At left or right wing, and either move flip flop Kempe. I just don't see him as a third liner. I could see him as a one or a two. That second line with Trevor Moore, Philly D, and Kevin Fiala, I wouldn't mess with that too much. I'd like to see how Fiala meshes with them because the line of Moore, Denault, and Arvidsson, did terrific last season. So now you're minus Arvidsson, but yeah, Fiala there, who has playmaking abilities, and I think I really feel deep down that Fiala is going to have a really big season this year. I feel like Kempe is going to have a little bit better season than he did offensively last season, even though it still was a really good season for Kempe. But I want to see more goals out of him. But I think Fiala is going to be the one that's going to take a bigger jump this season coming up. But also, like I mentioned earlier, with these young guys, do the Kings trade away Kaliev, and does that open a door for somebody like Akil Thomas or Samuel Fogimo? And like I mentioned before, I could see Akil Thomas before Fogimo. I'd like to see both of them, and that's where I was kind of bummed to see Trevor Lewis get re-signed because that takes a roster spot from one of those guys. But I could see Akil Thomas up, on the fourth line, and playing with those guys. I could see Quentin Byfield centering a line, and also moving Fogel up a couple lines. As to what the initial line assignments have on the internet, but the internet's not always 100% right, so we'll see what happens. Defensive pairing wise, I have no problems with these defensive pairings. Brandt Clark, that's the one I'm really interested to see how he does. He's going to bring up offensive capabilities, but it's a defensive part. Can he adjust to the speed, to the physicality of the NHL from Ontario? And he was up a little bit last year. He did all right. You can see some of that offensive magic that he does have in him. Defensively, he didn't do terrible, I didn't think. There were some, he did miss some plays. He was out of place a couple times. But that's all like learning stuff. That's all, young player, he'll get there kind of thing. But I know the organization is very, very high on him. And I know the fan base is very high on Brandt Clark. So we'll see what happens with Brandt Clark. I do like him. I think he is the next big thing defensively wise for the LA Kings. Drew Doughty, he's nearing the end of his career, but he does have I think, in my opinion, good at least 3 or 4 years yet before we don't see him anymore. Excuse me. All right. So basically that's what we're looking at this season so far. There's still some stuff I want to cover next week. I want to talk who the Kings drafted and kind of go from there. And I want to take another look at the line assignments as we come up. We're, I guess, probably a month and a half away or so from camps and stuff. So we got a little bit yet. So I might even skip next week just to kind of stretch it out a little bit, unless maybe Kaliev gets traded and I will come on again next week. But I'll probably skip next week, stretch it out a little bit because we are pretty far away yet from rookie camps and stuff and the start of the season. All right. So before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and do our sponsor read. And of course, we all know, if you've seen the show before, our sponsor is our man, your man, everybody's man, Jason Fine, attorney Big Al. You can reach Big Al at 1-800-HURT-123. That's 1-800-HURT-123. Jason Fine specializes in motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, workman's comp, and personal injury claims. Jason Fine has three office locations conveniently located throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey. In the Garden State of New Jersey, his offices are located in Cherry Hill on 3 Greensward Lane. The phone number there is 856-209-5258. And in Pennsylvania, he has offices located in Pittsburgh at 500 Grant Street, Suite 2900. The phone number there is 412-365-8151. And in Philadelphia, the offices are located in 1628 JFK Boulevard, Suite 2120. And the phone number there is 267-888-2980. That's Jason Fine, attorney Big Al. Quick programming note here. Big news here, college football frenzy for all you college football fans. Starting this Wednesday, tomorrow, August 7th, college football frenzy will return at 8:05 p.m. So buckle your seatbelts, get the popcorn ready. Here we go. College football right around the corner. Probably only a week or two away, to be honest, before you start getting to games. Usually college, you have some schools that start pretty early, and they'll have a couple bye weeks. So I won't be too surprised in the next two weeks or so, you start seeing some college football games pop up. Because I guess there is no preseason. I'm sure there's like scrimmages that they do and whatnot. They do their their team games. Like for instance, I live in Pennsylvania, so Penn State, they do the blue-white game. So they scrimmage each themselves and stuff. All right. I will be live tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. with the Batcave, talking New York Mets baseball. I got a bit to talk about there and some thoughts and opinions, mostly opinions, and may not be popular opinions. Maybe I don't know if they might be popular. It doesn't matter. All right, so that's all I have for today. I appreciate it very much for checking the show out. Atomic Drop podcast this Friday. I think we're going 11 p.m. this Friday, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, that's it. Next week, next Monday, I'll be live with the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll be talking that Silver and Black Lair Raiders edition. And then, like I said, now I'll take next week off from the Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition. I'll be back the following week, and we'll talk some more Kings. And like I said, we'll see if Kaliev is traded and what we got going on here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for checking the show out. Thank you to those that commented. And be sure to like, follow, subscribe to Out of the Box Sports Entertainment on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Twitch. On X, it's at OOTBox Sports. YouTube, you can search it up by punching Out of the Box Sports Entertainment, or their handle is at OOTBox Sports as well. Please like, follow, subscribe, and we appreciate it very much. All right, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition, and go Kings, go. See ya.